What does beer, cheese, and functional alcoholics have in common? That's right, they're all from Wisconsin. So stick around to the end to see the wild world of Wisconsin cryptids. Hey, that rhymed. Now our first cryptid on today's list is the man-faced pig of Door County. And I know it's not your typical cryptid, it is the product of a curse, but I wanted to talk about it because it is my list. Now, the man-faced pig is just what it sounds like. A pig with a dude's face on it. But with this cryptid, it has a whole legend surrounding it. And the legend goes as such. Somewhere between the late 1800s and the early 1900s, a farmer from Brussels, Wisconsin became angry when he discovered that he was taken out of his family's will. But after receiving the news, he cursed the men who delivered it, but he did it wrong. His magic was level 1, he needed a level 2 to hit that spell. So he cursed himself. Bummer. And that night, his furniture began to move around the house while flute music played in the background, like a crappy horror movie. But the animals began to change, all of them. But the ones who changed the most were the pigs. And when he woke up, there were 2 pigs with men faces on them, just staring at him. And through the next couple of weeks, every waking hour the farmer was tormented by 2 pigs staring at him judgingly. And there was no escape. No matter where he went or what he did, there was always a man-faced pig staring at him. And it didn't take long for insanity to start kicking in. And when he didn't think he could handle it anymore, he went to his neighbors and told her all that had happened. And she told him to go home, build an altar, and pray to God and ask for forgiveness. And he did that, and the pigs turned back to actual pigs. And this is a big part of the history of the town of Brussels. And apparently, the altar is still around today, so that's pretty cool. However, I cannot find any proof that this altar exists. But if anybody's in the area, please let me know if this altar is still around today. And our next cryptid is the Boston Birdman. And let me tell you what. This has to be the scariest cryptid that I have heard of. Now, the Birdman has the body of a man, the arms of a man, and the legs of a man. Well, sounds like a man, right? Wrong, because it has the beak and the head and the talons of a bird. And it is covered in short, round, yellow feathers. Not like your typical bird feather, something completely different. But this freaky bird thing is said to be intelligent. Now, first seen in Boston, Wisconsin in the 70s, the Boston Birdman came to terrorize a family. And one day, an older lady was frightened when she was watching TV when she saw something out the window. So she got up to investigate, as any sane person would do. And when she got close, she saw the giant Birdman staring into her soul. Terrified, as in anybody would be, she screamed and ran away. But years later, the woman's grandchildren, who were neighbors with her, would have Big Bird come to their home and play with them at night. Did I mention outside? Kind of creepy. In fact, that is terrifying. However, the older sibling who was recounting this story did not remember it. He just remembered his sister talking about them playing with Big Bird for about a year. But then she stopped talking about Big Bird altogether. And years later, she also did not remember anything about playing with Big Bird at night. And if that's true, that is one of the scary and most ominous cryptids yet. Like, why was it playing with kids? Do we need to call Chris Hansen or Skeet Hansen or even Gideon? But to tell you the truth, I cannot explain the Big Bird stuff. That is actually terrifying. But it's very possible that what the grandma saw was just an owl outside her window. But typically owls don't play with kids. So that's the weird, that's a head scratcher. Now our next cryptid is the phantom kangaroo. Yeah, you heard me right. A phantom kangaroo. Well, the phantom kangaroo is kangaroo-like in appearance, and in fact is literally just a kangaroo in a place where kangaroos are not native. And although it is a worldwide phenomenon, it surprisingly happens in Wisconsin a lot. In fact, one of the first reported sightings come from 1899, where a kangaroo was reported crossing people's lawns, and it was believed that it was an escaped kangaroo from a circus. But there was no circus with a kangaroo anywhere nearby. But in 1978 in Waukesha, a school bus driver saw a kangaroo hopping through the street. And a week later in Pewaukee, there were 12 more sightings of kangaroos. And in true Wisconsin fashion, a local tavern devised a plan to go hunt the kangaroo, and some even went out and used air horns to attract it, somehow, I guess. But even though I'm from the Midwest, I'm not much of a day drinker, so I don't have the mindset of your typical Wisconsinite. And they would even dress up as kangaroos and use themselves as bait in a way. But sadly, it turns out that it was all a prank by two brothers. And these two brothers, they made a kangaroo cutout of plywood and I guess put it around town, and that's what people saw. But that wasn't the end of kangaroo sightings. In fact, in 2005, there was a 150-pound red kangaroo that was captured, and 11 months later, a kangaroo was hit and killed by a car in Mauston. And in 2017, in Kenosha County, a kangaroo was found wandering near a farm. So, Wisconsin, what's up? Why are you hiding your wild kangaroos? I want some. And our next cryptid on today's list is the hodag. And he's a pretty popular one. The hodag is a carnivore with large bull-like horns on either side of its head, spikes protruding from its back and tail, and a frog-like face, and dragon-like, I guess. But the hodag is actually the mortal enemy of the great Paul Bunyan, which I did not know that. And that is a kaiju movie that I would love to see. I mean, I love kaiju movies, so I'd watch any. But that's not all. There have been wild hodags caught in the wild on a couple of occasions. First being in 1893 in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, a newspaper first reported the hodag, and soon after a man named Eugene Shepard rounded up Wisconsin finest to hunt the hodag. And it was a fierce battle that ended by blowing the hodag up with dynamite. Poor little dude. Then in 1896, just 3 years later, Shepard caught another one by, get this, him and a group of bear wrestlers tied a rag of chloroform at one end of a long pole and put it in the beast's lair and somehow got it out and put it in the local fair. And he even got a picture of him capturing the hodag. Here it is. Then the story became national news, and people from the Smithsonian headed out to Wisconsin, so Shepard had to admit that he had faked and staged the whole thing, which is very disappointing, but you never know. Maybe there is still a wild hodag in the woods of Wisconsin. I mean, they wouldn't know. They're too drunk. And finally, our last cryptid on today's list, and that is the Beast of Bray Road. Now, the Beast of Bray Road is like a mixture between a werewolf and Bigfoot. It is 6 or 7 feet tall, a body like a man, and the head of a wolf covered in fur. And to me, it kind of sounds like the Michigan Dog Man. And we all know that the Michigan Dog Man is way better than any type of werewolf. But the first sighting was in 1936, where a security guard from a school witnessed it digging in, quote, an Indian burial mound. Then it disappeared for about 40 years, and in the 1980s, a couple reported that they had hit an odd beast with their vehicle. Leaving the car to investigate, they noticed a large wolf-like creature with red eyes charging at them. And they jumped back into their car and drove off, but the beast left scratch marks down their car, and it all happened on Bray Road. That's how it got its name. But from there, sightings became more frequent, with others seeing a large wolf run through a cornfield chasing a deer. But it only gets worse from there, because animals were reported as having been found half-eaten with certain organs removed, and that includes deer and large livestock. And it has even been seen recently in 2018 and 2020, where witnesses reported a large bipedal creature in Walworth County, which is really cool. Kind of scary though. And with that, thank you for watching today's video. I hope you liked it. Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. It would really help me out. Thank you. Bye.